All right, good morning. Before we start the meeting, just a reminder that this is recorded and live streamed for posterity's sake, so keep that in mind. Okay, good morning. I call the meeting to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Delegate Hornberger, would you please offer a prayer for the group this morning?
Yes, if everyone could please bow their heads. Dear Lord, we come to you today on this glorious Friday. We've made it this far through session, which is basically 1 month left ahead of us. We pray for your guidance, and as you are our leader, please give us leadership skills to build consensus, to balance the budget, and to continue to maintain the positive relationships that we've established over the prior years. We know that you are our shepherd, and we ask that not only do we leave here better friends, but we also make it a better state. With that, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Delegate Hornberger. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Eastern Shore Delegation. Today is Friday, March 10th, 2023. We have 3 presenters today: the Maryland Department of Transportation, the Maryland Department of Commerce, and Maryland. This
meeting is being recorded.
Maryland Department of Health. 10 o'clock sharp.
Ed says he's
if everyone their microphones on mute. That's very well. Okay. And at 10 o'clock sharp, we have U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen. So with the agenda, we have 3 secretaries. We're very happy to have the different departments over the course of this legislative session come in and introduce themselves. And if the first before we do that, I need a motion to approve the minutes from March 3rd. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those say aye if you approve. All opposed? Okay, those motions moved. Okay, so Maryland Department of Transportation. Do we have Secretary Paul Wiedenfeld with us this morning?
Secretary, you're muted.
Pardon me, I did that when I heard that feedback.
That was some special feedback this morning, Mr. Secretary.
All right. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm still hearing a little feedback. Are you? Is that better? Let me try again. How's that? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good. All right.
Now you're back on mute, Mr. Secretary.
How's that keep happening there? I didn't touch it. All right. How's that? Okay. Very good. Sorry. So 3 things. A quick introduction, talk a little bit about some of the priorities for the department, and obviously take any questions you have. Just by way of background, I've been in the business for just over 40 years. Spent 10 years at the Department of Transportation managing the capital program, the CTP, and doing planning work there. Spent 10 years in the private sector with large engineering firms, and then spent 20 years as the leader at BWI Airport for 10 years and 10 years at both MTA and the Washington Metro. Just on a personal note, I do have a connection with Eastern Shore. I bought a house over in Newark, Maryland. If you've ever been to Barbley's restaurant down in just out of Snow Hill, right there. And my brother helped me rehab that house, and he loved it so much he bought one four doors down from me. So we spend quite a bit of time down in the Lower Eastern Shore. In terms of priorities, one of the biggest ones for me, particularly with my background, is making sure that we deliver projects on budget and on schedule. So a lot of focus on that, and associated with that is the accountability of the organization, and also transparency within the organization. I also think that we need to take a hard look at the capital program development process. It's been in place for decades, and I think that there's some things there that we can do much better, particularly in terms of making sure that we're getting more input into some of the projects that we do fund. And then another priority for mine is the federal funding. Obviously, with the additional federal funding, opportunities for the state to, in effect, grab as many dollars, but also to help local governments as they go after those projects as well, because some of those are sort of almost earmarked, in effect, for local governments. So we'll make sure we're good partners with locals as well as they go after dollars. So those are sort of the big picture things that I just wanted you to all be aware. I know I've met with some of you. I haven't had the good fortune to meet with all of you yet. Be glad to meet with you individually if there's any particular issues you want to discuss. But with that, I'll be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, good morning, and thank you very much. We, while the members are considering questions, Mr. Secretary, around the 495 Beltway, and I know this isn't necessarily an Eastern Shore direct issue, but the confluence of, is it 495, and what's the route number coming in from Frederick area there?
I-270.
Thank you. Could you give us just a brief update? I do use that route quite often, and there's been some conflict as to how to do that with the Easy Pass, and also just the general tenor as to whether or not we should be expanding our roads. I do compare and contrast, Maryland's work on this sort of project against Virginia, which seems to have a lot of projects moving quicker, coming in and out of that metropolitan area, and just wanted your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. So we have what's called a record of decision for a project there, but basically from the American Legion Bridge, actually just in Virginia, basically starts in Virginia, goes to the American Legion Bridge and up to basically where the ICC connects with I-270. So that basically we've been through the federal process for that. And basically that's in effect adding two HOT high occupancy toll lanes on that. There was an agreement with a third party to deliver that project. You may have seen in the press that basically yesterday they have pulled out of that for a number of reasons. Obviously, the world's changed quite a bit over the last two plus years anyway, particularly in the transportation delivery business in terms of cost and things of that nature. So they made to be frank, a business decision, which we understand. So we will, in effect, take a look at that and look at our options for moving forward. There are still a number of options to move forward. So that's sort of where that sits. As you know, this all developed yesterday evening. They are an Australian company. They needed to make their announcement with the opening of their markets, which was yesterday evening around 5:30. So it is sort of playing out right now. But that's the scale of the project, the nature of the project.
All right. Now I might have a few more questions
Sure,
at the end, depending if we don't cover it. But Senator Croza, you have a question?
Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning again.
And we appreciate that you have your other home on the shore in my district. So look forward to seeing you down on the shore. I have two questions, one dealing with Worcester County and one dealing with Wycomico County. In Worcester County, as you know, because I think you kind of watched the evolution since the Ehrlich years, that 113 was the top priority for Worcester County for years, the dualization from the Delaware line all the way through the county to the Virginia line. So I wanted to, now that we have completed that, and as you know, Worcester County has shifted gears and as a priority is now focusing on Route 90 for, all the issues that have to dealing with evacuations, safety, traffic. So I'd like to hear your update on where we are with prioritizing and expediting the plans for Route 90, the Route 90 bridge. And second of all, for Wycomico County, there I have been, and I'm not sure how formal the process has been with SHA at this point, but the accessing the 13 bypass and the cutting across 50. So when you're coming, trying to get on the 13 bypass and making that that turn onto the 113 bypass has really become a safety and dangerous situation. And I just don't know where that is either in your planning or a review of that particular spot and what plans might be underway for the future.
Okay, thanks, Senator. Just on the 113 issue, I lived through the construction of that. It basically was right where you have the cutoff at the Sunoco there off of 113 into Newark. So I'm very familiar with that. So I'm glad that that one is behind us. On the Route 90, I think you just saw, we came out, I think about maybe 2 weeks ago with where we are in that study process. And basically, we're continuing to pursue, what are the options there? We understand from the perspective of the safety perspective and also the evacuation perspective of that project, the need for that project. So that is, moving forward. We'll continue to do that. And then the 113, in effect, that weave motion is what you're referring to there, that potential safety issue on the weave. I am having State Highway take a look at that to see what other options we can do there to basically, I understand that, that weaving motion that occurs there, to see what we can do to make that safer. So I will get back to you on that one, if I could, just to see where they are, because I did ask them.
Just to be clear, it's actually the crossover from where you're trying to make if you're traveling east on 50 and you're trying to make the left onto the bypass.
Right.
So it's not traveling west and getting on, it's more that trying to make that left-hand turn if you were driving west on 50 to get on the 13 bypass.
Right. No, I'm familiar with it. I maybe used the wrong term weave, but I understand the issue. And I did ask State Highway, I asked Tim to take a quick look at that for me and let me know what some of the thinking is on there.
Okay, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Secretary. Good to have you on here this morning.
Senior.
And it's a happy Friday for us over here in Annapolis. I'll say that. Anyhow, I'm here from some of my constituents about an issue it's in Caroline County, 404 and River Road. It's at River Road is where North Carolina High School is, and it's a very, very busy intersection there. We've been promised a left turn signal there for a couple of years, and more recently that it would go out to bids in January, and we're not hearing anything more about that. But the constituents in the area are calling my office wanting to know, where that is because that promise had been made. And so I was just wondering if you've gotten to that in your short time of being Secretary, if you know anything about that project.
I don't know the details, but I will get back to you today with what the current status is.
And I appreciate that, sir. The other thing is, there's, of course, we're all on Northern Shore. We're part of the Ken Fender fan club. And just wondering if our system preservation dollars are pretty strong. There's a lot of potholes all over the place. And I'm sure we're going to be calling and because we're hearing from our constituents about it's been not that terrible of a winter, but yet there's plenty of potholes here and there. Is the system preservation money looking pretty good?
The dollars are it's been a very interesting winter in terms of obviously not the snow, but it's been a very wet and not only the wet, but the types of storms we've had. So we've actually had other issues pop up that traditionally we don't. So, we're trying to adjust to some of that, but I'll double check on anything specific, but there's no funding issue right now. It is a delivery issue. And as you know, I think, we're all dealing with reduced staff, because of the ability to maintain people, particularly frontline people. We're losing a lot of those because of some of the salary issues and things of that sort. So that is slowing us down a lot or some on some of these immediate response issues that we have to have. So that's, another area that we have to focus on for sure.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you once again for the meeting that you had. Time flies. I don't know if that was 3 or 4 weeks ago with the Lieutenant Governor, her staff, and your staff, and the mayor regarding the Route 90 project. It was certainly insightful and appreciated. We just wanted to make sure the new administration was aware of the priority that it is for us and the safety concerns and everything to go with it. During that meeting, we talked about another project, Baltimore Avenue, and the concerns that we're having there for the safety and ADA, reasons with the sidewalks and everything in Ocean City, the traffic right up against the sidewalks. Has there been any discussion within your organization since then regarding the Baltimore Avenue project?
Yes, from the perspective of, is this potentially a federal grant type of, opportunity, again, with some of the new money. So that is one thing that I am exploring. I'm aware of the issue, as you mentioned, but I've asked our people to see, is there any other pot of money we could go after for that, and or with the city to do that? Maybe some sort of joint effort. So that I'm having that research right now. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I definitely am following up on it based on our meeting of almost 4 weeks ago now.
The one of the council members just recently reached out, regarding it because they need to make some decisions on capital projects. When do you think we would have an answer as to any potential cost sharing?
Let me get back to you later today, because I don't want to commit to something until I talk to our people. But
sure, I understand.
Touch base with them and see where they are with that, and I'll get back to you with that.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Delegate Aaron's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Mr. Secretary. I got a couple questions. I know you're pretty new on this, but something about, I don't know if you're aware of the Bay Bridge with the redecking. Is that something you've been briefed on? And I know you're really, as MDTA will probably be the customer and all this stuff, but I didn't know if you had a crystal ball. One of the biggest complaints we're seeing over there is the people that are be affected by the DNR Langenfelder property. Are you aware of that?
Not to the degree, not to. Okay. I'm aware of the deck replacement, but not to that
I
level.
guess one of the things that just maybe if you can keep in the back of your mind then is a lot of concern over there with this area because it's in a highly residential area and people are concerned about the future. And if you could maybe give me some kind of an idea on the phases. I know this is the first phase we're looking at now, and just keep in your mind the possibility of where these next couple phases to finish that redecking might end up being managed from the shore. They seem to have a lot of heartburn on that. And I would like you to just keep in mind that as we move forward on that project, if there's a potential to possibly take it somewhere else after this phase and move to another one, just to keep the people are up in arms about it. We've had a couple of public hearings, but I do appreciate, I'll tell you, Will Pines has been excellent in all this to help us through some of this stuff and the communication. So, but we'll touch base with you later on it, maybe as it gets bigger, but thank you for your time.
And I did talk to Will. I think he was recently in front of the delegation here. So he is all over that. I mean, I know that he's very sensitive to some of those issues. I'm looking at, I know we're putting up the crane right now, I believe, to get ready to do some work, preliminary work, and the major work starts in the fall, where we actually start bringing in the new decks and dropping them in. So let me touch base with him to make sure, and I know he is, but and just to make sure that we're continuing to be sensitive to that other issue that you just mentioned.
Okay, and I want you to know I am the president of the Ken Fender fan club. I took that position over last year with all the work he's done. Your group does a great job over here. We sincerely appreciate it. And through the Easy Pass crisis, Will was phenomenal too. So thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Delegate Aaron's, I'm a ranking member of that same committee. Thank you very much. Senator Croza, good morning again.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I also wanted to thank your, before I switch from roads to air, I wanted to thank you for your local team and all the support on the improvements for Gray's Corner Road, where, we've had a couple of our local constituents killed on that road in the past year. And I really appreciated you all came in and you put you did more lighting and the signage. And then when we were able to, make the case on lowering the speed limit, which normally I know takes a long process, you all did that in record time, and that is a major safety issue. My last piece and request for Gray's Corner Road is my understanding, and I just wanted to confirm it with you, is that the State Highway Administration was still going to look at the entire Gray's Corner corridor to see if there were going to be any other safety improvements or options for that road. So I think that's the last piece, but I did want to let you know the immediate, especially having that speed limit lowered, has made a real difference. And we've also been in contact with, the law enforcement about enforcement as well. So I asked for, just to confirm that you're completing that, the rest of the corridor study for Gray's Corner Road, and then switching gears from land to air. Many of us in the delegation are passionate about seeing the Salisbury Regional Airport continue to grow. It's such an economic driver for us, and there are, I know, multiple projects going on there as we continue to push forward on the extension of the runway. But could you give us an update on the Salisbury Regional Airport, please?
Sure. On the first, going back to the road, obviously I'm very familiar with the most recent tragedy there, and I'm glad our district people went out there right away. And we are, as we spoke earlier a few weeks ago, we are looking at that whole stretch there. So that is in the works. And on the airport, in fact, I spoke to Ashish. I don't know if you know Ashish, who runs the the overall air issues for us at BW or through MAA. And he mentioned to me that there would be a request coming to us shortly on some additional work there. So he will be sending me some information on a potential grant for the Salisbury Airport. So I don't have all the details to it, but he did alert me that we'll be getting a request in very shortly to the Secretary's office for that.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, I just want to close by saying thank you again, and I'll reiterate this with each of the secretaries as we close out our meetings that we have for this session, and thank the governor for helping you and others engage with the Eastern Shore delegation. Your organization has a distinct honor within the Eastern Shore delegation. We have what are called the road shows that come around every year, where we get full updates from MDOT, from DMV to SHA, air, and large infrastructure roads projects. And so the nature of your business is very close to us on the shore. And to Delegate Aarons's point, each of our directors who represent on a local level have such a wonderful reputation of being responsive, and we appreciate that truly, and look forward to continue working with your department to fulfill the needs and the obligations as we have as a state for our local citizens.
Very good, sir. Thank you, and we'll continue to do that.
All right. Have a good day.
All right, thank
Okay.
you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Next on the agenda is Secretary Kevin Anderson. He's the Secretary for the Department of Commerce. Kevin, and you and I met early on, and you also have the distinct honor of having as your not your immediate predecessor, but the one before that, a wonderful person by the name of Kelly Schultz, who I think the world of, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on your visions, the governor's visions, and how we can connect with you on that front. So the floor is yours, sir.
Great. Thanks so much. It's good to be here and good to see you again. Yeah, I actually had a chance to sit down and have coffee with Kelly a little while ago, and just had a great conversation. And again, just feels very warm about the direction and the things that we're doing in the state. Again, I think I've met several of you. I know I see Senator Carrozza. It's great to see you again as well. And thanks so much for all of your support. And I hope to get to know and see everybody beginning to work together. I think, just a quick overview. Commerce is going to be working really, really hard to implement the governor's vision, and which is really core on being more competitive and making Maryland a more prosperous place. We're super excited to partner. All of the conversations that I've had and interactions that I've had with all of the business owners, the legislature, just reinforce the huge opportunity that I think we have in the successful work that we're gonna do. Just to give you some quick background about myself, I think some of you may have read. I was my worldview kind of comes from being born and raised in the city, and getting some great opportunities through the educational system, which I think our country probably does the best in the world, and kind of having a huge appreciation for it, for where sometimes there may not be opportunity, and then there's great opportunity to really position the individual to do well. And it really gave me a great trajectory to do some great work. My professional career took me to Wall Street, where I really got to know the American financial system and got to understand value and how hard we work for value, and the way the system ensures that we are productive and we do things the right way, and we actually work in a profit-centered mode to make us work better. I also had some great experience in working in government. I worked for Mayor Anthony Williams in Washington, D.C. Some of you may or may not know that history, but he was appointed CFO by the president way back in the late 90s, and had to do a job of improving a big city, our nation's capital. And I got some really great experience about what good governing and what good public policy and even what good economic policy can do to really get a good city and get a really vibrant opportunity to make it work better, to get it in position. I think some of you know now, the city is just doing fantastic and has become a beacon, I think, for the country, and especially in urban places, about what can happen when you plan well, finance well, and you work well. And then I've also had some experiences in real estate, starting a fund, understanding, really what it takes to start up, the grit, resilience, really clear thinking about doing big projects in real estate. And then also had time in a big tech startup. We created a company that was created back in 2008. I joined in 2012, but we were only about $6 million. And really, I think people have their impressions and ideas that the tech world operates in and of itself, and just can you hear me? In the tech world, it operates in and of itself. Just begins to work. But you really have to have some grit and some understanding, and really see the financing, your capital stack, how it works, how strong your relationships need to be, and really watching the market every day in order for a successful startup to happen. And so that's kind of shaped what has been my really wonderful vision of economic development, of what our cities, our states, and our country can do to really work well from an economic standpoint, but also be very conscious of what I think the governor always talks about, and I believe about being intentional and understanding, when there are some unintended consequences, and when the machine doesn't work well, and maybe spits out some things that we need to really work hard at to be intentional and correct. And so it's been great, and I feel really privileged and have a real great opportunity for where we are in the state to help the governor, assist the governor, and lead as we continue to work and build. And just some other quick ones. I'll give you some other thoughts about the governor and some of the things that we're working on. I think most of you have heard it. He got it right. We got some really incredible assets. Everything that I've seen in the month I've been on the job has been great. Starting with all of the facilities, the federal, the military partners, our colleges, our universities, all of the great places we have to visit, the beaches, the bay, the cities, the towns, especially everything on the Eastern Shore. And then again, on top of it, just the great and fantastic people. And you can have all of the great stuff that you need, but the people in the state of Maryland, make it happen. We reiterate, and I reiterate all the time, that our state is the second most educated state in the United States of America. We're the 7th wealthiest state in the United States of America. We got some of the brightest, most creative hardest working people that you'll ever meet. We have PhD scientists, STEM workers, just everything in the pot in the portfolio, including, our wonderful Eastern Shore opportunities, and just want to make sure that we begin to make them work. And you guys have heard the stats too, in the bigger picture with where the governor wants to go. There's some things that we look at and drive us every day, like understanding that the national economy has run at about a 23% clip over the last 10 years, and our states only run at about a 10 or 11% clip. We got to do better. We have the assets, and just kind of hunkering down and making sure we understand how we change the trends, how we strategically pull our resources together through all 24 counties, including Baltimore City, all with very unique, great, wonderful opportunities that deserve and require some really, really specific help and strategy to get us to the next step. And again, just kind of, and I think the work's not going to be super easy, but we're going to lay it out and work really, really hard. We had some budget hearings this session. I've testified and I've asked lawmakers to approve $10 million for the Build Our Future Grant Pilot Program, which is a big priority, and that'll provide funding for some infrastructure projects. Those funds can go to businesses and, have a wide range of opportunities where we could support lots of opportunities. And you've also, heard about the, I guess, the overall agenda of, fighting poverty and, opportunities in the Fair Wage Act and all of the real, specific individual opportunities that we're working for and building as we continue to grow and concentrate on really, getting Maryland statewide in a position to be very strong, which will lift all boats and really get our state on the map to be a huge competitor nationally to really grow our economy. And I think, in the space of some things that are, important, just kind of going through and looking at some notes. I think we for projects on the Eastern Shore, I think last year we announced that there were 114 recipients of grants for the $50 million Rural Economic Development Fund, which included a lot of projects on the Eastern Shore, the new industrial park in Somerset County, the agricultural biotech manufacturing center in Talbot County, all of the enhancements in the Salisbury, Ocean City, Wacomico Regional Airport, and dredging the West Ocean City Commercial Harbor and a bunch of others. And I think just last week, we announced a $1.6 million federal funding to support tourism initiatives in areas where the tourism industry was hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. This included another $250,000 to support a new advertising campaign to attract leisure travelers to the Salisbury-Wacomico area and help restore 350 tourism jobs lost in that area. So again, don't want to go too long. I don't want to entertain any questions or thoughts or ideas, but those are some of the items that we're working on in the overall thrust about what we're doing at Commerce, the kind of thinking and the way, we want to lead the agency to be a really, really huge partner, a strategic partner and a thought partner to make sure we utilize our great asset, especially everything over at the on the Eastern Shore. Also, just want to note, Jennifer Lahat, my outstanding legislative officer, is on. I've spent more time in Annapolis than I have in my office. I just got the office today in the last 6 weeks to really get out in the field and get out into some projects and really look at and do some strategizing. But I know that time is coming. I think it's we got 33 days left, 34 days left. And I'm sure we'll do the business of the state that we have to do, and then we can get on with the work. So I guess with that, I'll entertain any questions or any thoughts, or maybe share a bit more.
Thank you, Secretary Anderson. And definitely Annapolis, when we're in session for those 90 days, turns out to be a magnet for attention, and certainly the attention of your department and others. Yeah. And I will say that in our committee, I serve on Economic Matters Committee, the engagement from the governor's office, from secretaries, deputy secretaries, right on down has been notable. And thank you for that. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us. So just interested in your thoughts. You talked about the educated workforce, and it seems like since COVID, there's so much talk about bringing manufacturing jobs back to, back to the states. And, as far as Maryland being competitive to have new businesses land here, the General Assembly, kind of, I guess 10 years ago or so, had the Maryland Economic Development and Business Climate Commission, the Augustine Commission. And one of the recommendations that came from that, I think it was back in 2016, their chief recommendation was to lower the corporate tax rate for Maryland. Since that came out in 2016 to now, nothing's been done. And when you look at our neighboring states, Virginia, I think, is at 6%. West Virginia is at 6.5%. Pennsylvania used to be at 8.99%. Their legislature is dropping the corporate tax rate 0.5% every year to 4.99%, I think, in 2031. So, if we're going to be serious about this, Maryland's at 8.25%. When a business is thinking about landing somewhere, I think a huge part of that is the business-friendly climate of the state. And I think everybody knows that Maryland is not ranked very high in that regard. Would you support, or do you see the administration supporting something? The initial thought, I'm sure, is the loss of tax revenue. But when you look at the ability to attract companies to Maryland, as you know, having and more employees, through those new businesses, those employees are, it's just, it just starts compounding when you have those employees paying income tax. You have those employees spending money in the community. And I really think that we need to be serious about this and take into consideration our competitive nature. Where do you see the administration on something like this?
Sure, Delegate Hartman. In the overall big picture, and certainly taxes are an important part of it, and it all moves to the place of being more competitive. And when you look at more competitive, I think our administration is going to take a broad and comprehensive look at it about where we are taxes. I'll share a story with you. When I was, even in my space and preparing and having conversations about a state's economy and moving businesses, I got some great advice by some really influential financiers and corporate leaders. And they said, Kevin, try not to get too overwhelmed with taxes, but really concentrate on your ecosystem. Taxes are a huge part of it, but understand your workforce, understand your public resources, understand your educational system. Make sure your legislature and leadership and everyone sets a tone of friendly business to be able to do that. And certainly, Delegate Hartman, we all know, Virginia's eating our lunch. You know what I mean? Clearly, and our neighbors are eating our lunch probably in the space of taxes and everything. So, what I can tell you is that we're gonna create a plan, and we're gonna create a plan that's gonna be successful. And again, where that comes in for tax opportunities and other things that we'll find out that really prevent us from being competitive or prevent us from being successful, I can tell you that we're going to work hard and look at taking action to make sure we can accomplish our goals. I think the governor made a great example with the veterans tax rate. I mean, he just kind of get in there and just said, hey, we need to become more competitive. We took a look at it, and we were the only state, I think, of the 14 around us who were still taxing that income. And it was kind of a no-brainer move. So I hope that helps you. Specifically, I can't, really kind of card on it, but what I can assure you is that we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be intentional, and we're going to work really hard at making sure we're competitive and getting our state's economy in a much better position to be much more productive and attracting businesses as that.
I appreciate the answer. And I certainly welcome the military tax cut that was proposed. Unfortunately, after hearing of the latest budget write-down, that the governor's bill was heavily amended, and unfortunately, because of the fiscal note, it's certainly not as attractive as it was, but at least we're going in the right direction in that regard. And I really think with Pennsylvania making such a bold move right next to us, Virginia, as you said, is just thriving, and looking at those corporate tax rates around us, understanding the Augustine Commission and their report, something that was ordered a decade ago and that nothing's been done with it. It's discouraging. So I really hope that we can have some future conversations and maybe have some support on legislation next year to cut that corporate tax rate. Thank you.
Speaker Pro Tem.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Mr. Secretary. Thank you so much for being here. My apologies, I don't have my camera on, but I have to follow the directions of the speaker. She says, while you're driving, you should not be doing your video. Nonetheless, again, I appreciate you being here today. Two things. You mentioned about the Rural Prosperity Fund. I just want to let you know I have a bill in, it's House Bill 695, but the reason that we need to make sure that that bill passes is because of the impact that the Rural Maryland Prosperity Fund has had in our community and throughout all of the state in particular, because it helps the nonprofits, it helps so many organizations do more in the community to which we can't do collectively as a state. So I appreciate you mentioning that because the impact is so much more greater than I can even explain. So to that end, I just wanted to say, I wanted to highlight that. The second piece I wanted to raise, you talked about a comprehensive approach to our economy. Too often, what we're finding is that some of the pieces of legislation is impacting certain regions. And case in point, I'm referring to the poultry industry, our wood industry. And so when decisions are being made, I would just like to reiterate that we always have to look at how different policies that are decided upon impact our economic base on the Eastern Shore. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. While we have some other businesses thriving, like Chesapeake Shipbuilding and so many others, but there are others that are really cornerstones of our Eastern Shore that sometimes are threatened through various policies. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and just put it on your radar screen that it is somewhat of a concern. It still has been, or is a concern.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr.
Delegate.
Chair.
Yeah, Delegate Sample Hughes, I really thank you for that. And that has been a challenge that we've identified, in the very, I think, honest, approach, again, across the 24 counties, including Baltimore City, with some of our outstanding industries in biotech and cybersecurity and aerospace and farming and all the opportunities that we have. Just like you mentioned, sometimes there can be, siloed might be the right word, might not, but you see siloed opportunities that focus on economic development that sometimes we historically haven't done a good job of weaving a thread through all of the statewide opportunities and how we can coordinate that. And then how we can better utilize statewide resources to collectively, I think, better the economy as a whole, where we all can benefit. Some of the examples is to say, hey, can we make sure we coordinate our, business development and tourism operation, with our wonderful, film industry and other opportunities just the same. But yeah, we hear you, and we'll be working very hard again to strategically. And I think you hear the governor always, talks about, our state being asset poor but strategy rich, and that's what he means. That's what he's talking about. We have wonderful, great opportunities, but maybe we're not quite leveraging them and working together collectively to make it to be the most productive force as a state. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, I have one brief question and sort of follow up to both Delegate Hartman and our Speaker Pro Tem. Delegate Hartman mentioned that there was a revenue write-down of $477 million. That was yesterday or Wednesday. And At the same time, I was reading an article this morning that said nationally jobs are up over 300,000. So these are sort of data points that I think speak to concern, but also that maybe that concern doesn't cut across every state equally. And I guess my question to you would be, how do you, certainly through the lens of your department, view, the trend, which is, tax revenues down, but jobs seem to be holding steady. How do you see your role in making sure we get through, whether this is going to be a light recession or a heavier recession, a more dramatic recession? How do you see your department through that lens statewide? Because I believe at the end of the day, without hearing what you're getting ready to say, your department has a direct involvement in jobs training and tax credits and then site selection for businesses. But just wanted to ask the question because I think over the next 12 months, when you come back and visit us again, surely this question will be the same one with different data points, and would be asking you that question and get your thoughts.
Yeah, my knee-jerk response is we gotta, watch our market and watch our economy, very specifically, and even in a intra-state manner, I believe. I think most of us know and understand, our region, our state, we're strongly supported by the federal government. You know what I mean? The federal government economy keeps us moving into space. Sometimes we aren't affected as much when there's certain economic trends and certain economic movements. But just the same, we might be able to better take advantage of it, better tweak, and continue to even capitalize on some things that our economy offers that might be different from the national economy. So, my gut is to say, hey, and even within the state economy, we have a couple of very, strong, vibrant urban areas that may be affected by national trends. And then we have some great rural tourism and other areas that may respond and react differently. And then all of the tools that we have in the toolbox, we should be ready and prepared to use. Again, given that analysis. So my response is, we got to watch our market and our individual markets. I think to make sure we stay poised and take action accordingly.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute.
You got it. I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful.
It is, and I appreciate your answer. It's an interesting time we live in, and your department
Correct.
stands in a. All right, last question, Senator Mills.
You're on mute, my friend.
Thanks, Chairman. And Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to meet you, and appreciate you making the time. And I just wanted to share with you one thing I pick up on the shore. Our backbone are small independent businesses, and we need to. I support anything we can do to grow the economy and invest. However, one theme that is, paramount throughout the business community is the need for labor. And I understand that most of that's coming in a different department, the Department of Labor. I just would be remiss not to make the point to say, one of our greatest challenges, we're talking about minimum wage and what's going on and a number of different programs in the legislature right now dealing with workplace regulations and things like that. But if you step away from Annapolis and the discussion here and you get into the business world, the businesses are hurting right now. They can't keep up. They can't keep labor. And that's a puzzle I don't know exactly how to fix, but anything you can do during your tenure to focus on what are we doing? What are the policies? I mean, are there policies that are keeping people from working? If there are policies that are keeping people from working that can work, we need to find them and get people to work and things we can do to drive. I think our future labor market is in seniors in high school and juniors and seniors in college. How do we keep them? We don't want to lose them if we're training them. And it's a very serious challenge, and it ties into COVID. However, if we don't make adjustments, these businesses, when they shrink, they're not going to grow again. And that's a real challenge for the community, the business community on the shore. I really don't have a question for you. I just wanted to make that point, and thank you for taking the time. And also wanted to plug the budget for the tourism. The tourism office always got to plug their budget. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I'll just have a quick response for you, and I think it's key. I just had my first board meeting for the Governor's Workforce Development Board.
Yeah.
I love telling this story. I happen to be spending some time with County Executive Elrich in Montgomery County. He consistently reminds everyone that we lost the Amazon bid to get the Amazon headquarters, not because we weren't the low bid, and not because we didn't have the infrastructure to do it, but he was very clear that we lost it because they thought Virginia had a better opportunity to get the people into their company and sustain their company from a workforce place more than they did anything else. And, there were maybe taxes or whatever else that was involved. But if you were to really sit down and peel back the onion, that was a really, really huge place of it. I think you're absolutely right that COVID has changed our workforce economy. I sat in and keep up, with some of the national trends in the big urban places about what's going on in downtowns, in the downtown districts. Places like San Francisco and New York are coming to the conclusion that it's probably never going to be the way that it was, and looking at some ways of being real creative about how to bring the workforce back and how to continue to develop it, from a standpoint of making sure that the pipeline and the businesses can still be vibrant in how they recruit. And even particular to us in the state of Maryland, it's just that much more critical to make sure we have our finger, on the pulse of workforce, again, with the number of industries, the number of vibrant opportunities that we have, that we got to feed and that we got to develop. And so it's just really, really, really important. And I think I see Senator Mathias and I think a couple of others who have historically been connected with it. But I think you're right on. It's really most important, maybe one of the most, as we begin to, again, develop the ecosystem of what will be a vibrant and strong economy. So thank you. Thanks for that.
All right, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. And we look forward to your advocacy on our behalf, and have a good day.
Great. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me. Look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, we have Maryland Department of Health, Secretary Laura Herrera Scott. Secretary Herrera Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Laura Herrera Scott. I'm the new Secretary of Health, family medicine physician by training, public servant for most of my career in the Baltimore City at the federal level for the Veterans Health Administration as the National Director for Women Veterans Healthcare, and then as the Deputy Secretary for Public Health under the O'Malley administration. I left to go to the private sector for a little while, and very, very excited to be back here working with all of you. As far as my priorities, the email that I got was pretty generic as far as what to talk about. So I thought I would just talk about certainly how I'm thinking about rural health in Maryland, and then I'll take some questions. Certainly the role of rural health and how important it is. Nationally, we're hearing across 49 states, hospitals that are closing or service lines that are closing, and then what the implications to the closing are to the delivery system. And I'm certainly watching that to see how those kind of decisions elsewhere might be impacting Maryland. The good news is that the GBR, the total cost of care model, has buffered our rural hospitals from many of the things, but not all of the things. And so trying to understand the impact locally is certainly a priority in the first year. And how are we going to make sure that access to equitable healthcare applies to everyone, including rural Maryland? And thinking about access, it's not just somatic health, but especially behavioral health. We're in the process of doing an inventory of, if I think about behavioral health as a continuum of care with, prevention going all the way to acute and post-acute behavioral health care. We're in the process of doing an inventory of what that looks like, not only the state resources and what the local core service agencies and local behavioral health has, but what the hospitals have and what's in the private sector. And we're mapping that out. And it's clear, just based on the work we've been doing for 6 weeks, there's lots of gaps. So we're mapping that out by provider type and then by geography. And our goal is to then figure out, well, how does this impact services proportional to the population that's served and the prevalence of the conditions that are there? And then what do we need to do as a state and as a partner with the counties to bring services to the counties? Now, then I go to my next one, which is workforce, right? So we can't bring services if we don't have the workforce locally to provide the services. So that's certainly a priority as well. And how are the different programs that we do have, from the AHACs to the community colleges, what are they doing to help the pipeline, and where else do we need to be looking to support providers in the area? Those are the big ones. I could probably keep going on, but I thought I would just pause there and see if there are any questions based on what I shared so far. And if people have specific questions they have, I'm happy to address them.
Okay, thank you very much, Secretary. And you're right. We try to make these meetings with cabinet secretaries more of handshakes to introduce us to you and vice versa. And I think that's been a terrific response from the governor's office, and we thank you for being here today. Delegate Speaker Pro Tem Sample Hughes.
Good morning, and thank you for being with us this morning, Madam Secretary. One area that I have been a staunch supporter in and will be forever is the Alzheimer's and dementia care. I had a bill in to make sure that we had a coordinator or specifically a director to help coordinate the efforts around the state with our aging communities organizations. And my question is, and you may not have this right now on the top of your head, but where are we in the process of making sure that that position is filled, if it hasn't been already? Forgive me if it has. But then also to make sure that we have the funding in place so the care providers as well as the Alzheimer's patients are continually to get the quality care and the emphasis that's needed here in the state of Maryland. I know, and I believe that the governor just recently removed, I think it was like $3.5 million that was set aside to do a whole comprehensive package. I just wanted to try to get a pulse on where that is at this juncture. And if you don't have it now, that's certainly fine, but that's just one area that I'm very passionate about and just wanted to get an update.
So I share your passion. At the risk of oversharing, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at age 54. So I appreciate the significance of what you're saying. And when I was with the Malley administration, actually chaired the commission that wrote the Alzheimer's report and made several recommendations years ago. So agree on its importance. I don't know the answer to your question. I took a note. I'll have to go back and see if that position is filled. I haven't met. I've only gone one level now down from the deputy secretaries, but not far enough in the organization to know everything we have. So I'll have to get back to this delegation and give an update on where that is.
Okay, that would be great. And when that same conversation, just inquire if the 3.5 million isn't there to comprehensively do what we need to do as outlined by the plan, what would be our next steps to ensure that we are going to meet those goals at some juncture in the near future. But thank you so much.
Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Madam Secretary.
Good morning.
It's good to see you on there this morning. One of the biggest issues in the Midshore, Upper Shore, Midshore is the divestiture of the AF Whitsett Center in Kent County. And we've been talking and working on this issue for quite some time. And during the Hogan administration, it was it was put on the list to, basically the divestiture list. And I was wondering if you know anything about that, and would MDH be willing to take that off that list based on?
I've already taken it off the list. I think the behavioral health services that WITSA provides is incredibly important. And so I think we have a team out there now reviewing the site this morning. And so we're doing a full evaluation. Again, I don't have the history on why it was taken off the list. The condition of the building is in good condition, at least based on the master facilities plan, and given the services that are provided out of a portion of the building. So I'm reevaluating it now, but for now I've taken it off the plan to divest.
Thank you very much. It's a huge relief to the whole Eastern Shore, not just the Upper Shore and Mid Shore, but it serves such a great part of our population and very needed services. And it's a great building. You're correct that the bones are good. It just needs a little updating, but the community doesn't complain. And in today's world, it's hard to build anything anywhere that people, don't want it in their backyard, but it serves a huge purpose for us and the entire state of Maryland. If you look at the list of patients, they come from all over, but especially the shore. And I'm so thankful on behalf of especially the mid and upper shore that's very concerned with this. So I thank you for that. And also I have legislation going through on the delivery of healthcare on the mid shore, piece of legislation. We've been involved with that since 2016 on the delivery of healthcare on the shore. And there's some disparities there that are very concerning. And the legislation is moving through to continue that coalition, Midshore Coalition on that delivery of healthcare. And I thank you again for helping us with that as well. So good to see you and good to get good news on a Friday morning. Thank you very much.
So I want to be clear, we still have to figure out, now that I've taken it off the list, how to pay for it going forward, right? When it made the list. Okay. But I think it's important. So we've temporarily taken it off the list while we figure out the money.
That's a huge relief, but
okay.
$5 million that's pocket change, Thank you.
Senator Croza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and the Madam
Good to see you,
Secretary.
Senator.
Good to see you again. I first really want to thank you for all the time you took during the executive nominations committee process to meet, and it was really helpful to hear your vision for the department, and also that interaction between our local health officers that we talked about. But we also took a lot of time when we specifically talked about the challenges that Tidal Health is experiencing. And, when we talked about it, we broke it down in a couple different, areas of short-term and longer-term solutions. We talked about the immediate challenges that Tidal Health has with its operation budget and the request that is in with Governor Moore for his supplemental budget. We also talked about the bill that we just had a hearing yesterday on, Senate Bill 493, a commission to study trauma center funding across the state. And the sense of urgency here, and I tried to convey this with my the members on Senate Budget and Taxation, is the system just doesn't work right now. It was this fund was set up 20 years ago. It's never been reviewed or evaluated, and we've got a real problem when Tidal Health cannot access. They have surplus funds, but because of the way the regulations are set up, that they can't access these funds. And now we have, a very urgent situation with Tidal Health. So I wanted to, again, take the opportunity. You have been very gracious about the one-on-one meetings with Tidal Health and Chief Executive Officer Steve Leonard. I see Chris Hall is on this call. And you've been gracious about, hearing their specific issues. But I wanted to, again, elevate this because we just came off of our hearing yesterday and are really raising this as both an issue affecting Tidal Health, but an issue that is statewide as far as how we need to figure out how to improve that fund so it supports trauma centers like Tidal Health.
So a couple things have happened since you and I last connected. So I have spoken to MHCC and the fund, and there's not a lot of money in the fund. And as you already mentioned, it hasn't been increased in years. And so exploring with MHCC what would be involved. My understanding of the fund, it's a tax when we renew our license plates or something like that, but it's a very small amount of money. So working with MHCC on that, I actually have a meeting today with Ted Delbridge at MIMS just to understand the trauma system of care and the regulations for the staffing model that are contributing to some of the overspending related to trauma. I've already teed this up with the HSCRC to understand the methodology that we're using on the rates related to the trauma centers. And does that methodology need to be reevaluated? And then, as you know, I've met with Steve and the team twice now, and they will be coming in, I think, in the next few weeks to meet again. So I'm started the ball rolling with everyone that I think has some stake in trauma and to understand the system of care that we have and that what changes are needed either physically or financially to improve it for everyone that's providing that care. So I don't have any answers for you today other than those are the meetings I have set up and again, following up with Tidal as these meetings happen.
Well, Madam Secretary, I want to thank you for that. And I just also wanted to use today to underscore the sense of urgency that I think I have from the very beginning with Tidal Health situation. And I have to tell you, I have worked with the leadership of Tidal Health for the past several years, and they've never come in on any issue like this. And for Tidal Health to come to us with this situation, it means they have tried everything they could possibly do through the current system. And that just, to me, underscores the fact that the system, the way this is set up right now, it's just not working. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Madam Secretary, I see we have our U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen on. I do want to just, before we have him come on, I want to just take a moment and mention Deer's Head, which is a significant resource for us, and just not that we need to have a long conversation about it, but just raise the issue so it's important to us on the shore. And then in following up to Senator Crow's, I know this is sort of outside of the normal bounds, but we've had multiple delegation meetings where we've talked about shore health and University of Baltimore connection with to get a residency program. And lastly, Senator Crow's had talked about Tidal Health. And I wanted to give them just, if we could do this all three, frankly, within a moment or two, as we segue to the U.S. Senator, and maybe just have you listen in. I think they might have a couple of words that will be helpful. And because it's been front page news for us, I feel like it would be helpful. So Chris Hall, would you like to just take a moment and share with the group and also with the Secretary?
Oh, well, thank you, Chairman. Just for the record, I'm Chris Hall. I'm the Vice President, Chief Business Officer for Tidal Health, and Senator Crow's is correct. We usually don't work with our delegation because we try to work within the confines of our regulated industry. Just a quick thank you to the Secretary. She's absolutely right. She's been wonderfully available for us and listening. And just want to underscore what she said as far as making sure that the equitable distribution of the retained revenues in the state of Maryland are equitably distributed across the state, across the different providers. The shore, while nobody's unique, it is a little bit, if the trauma center didn't exist on the Eastern Shore, it's a 2.5-hour drive to the nearest one, which 40% of the ambulances probably don't fly. And then you're looking at trucks being taken out of service. So it is detrimental to the shore if it doesn't exist. And as she mentioned, working with HSCRC from the rate side of things to appropriations, et cetera. So thank you, Harry Scott. It's been wonderful working with you.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Gerald, would you like to just take a moment and, if you will, we want to keep it brief though, please.
Thank you. I will be. I'm Bruce Gerald, president of University of Maryland, Baltimore. I want to thank the delegation for this moment to comment and the secretary for her strong support of rural health care, primary care. We believe that a family medicine residency on the shore is a critical next step. Eventually that needs to have the whole pipeline done, but I'm highly supportive of that and thank you for your support on that.
Is Shore Health on? It's possible we got the message out late.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Ken
Ken
too, by
Cozell.
the way, right, Ken? I've met with Ken too, so.
Yes, and I just wanted to say, Secretary, thank you so much for the time you gave me to talk about rural healthcare and the challenges we face. And I really appreciate your in-depth knowledge and leaning into our conversation and supporting what we're trying to accomplish here on the Eastern Shore. Critically important, as Dr. Gerald just mentioned, primary care is foundational, as we all know. Behavioral health services and partnerships with our behavioral health communities are critical. And supporting the new Easton Regional Medical Center is vital to our our decades-long efforts to solve rural healthcare in Maryland so we can be the role model for the rest of the country. Thank you so much for your time, Madam Secretary, and for the opportunity to speak with you recently.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, thank you for the health systems and giving us just a follow-up and backup. Okay, Secretary Herrera-Scott, thank you very much. As you know, healthcare is super important to us. It has been the top subject of these delegation meetings. It appears throughout the legislative session, and we look forward to partnering with you over the next number of years to advance the interests of our citizens on the shore. So thank you.
Same, and you all know where to find me. So if you have questions or need follow-ups, just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, thank you very much. I tried to time this right. I knew 10 o'clock was important to you, but we were talking healthcare and Senator, this has been top information that we've been dealing with early on in this new 4-year term of the governor, and we appreciate your patience, and the floor is yours until the meeting's over. So can't wait to hear what's going on in Washington and how we can help you and you can help us.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Adams. Thank you for your leadership. It's great to be with the entire Eastern Shore delegation, and I appreciate your focus on healthcare and look forward to working with you on that as well as other issues. Let me just say, since I think this is the first time since the election that I've met with the entire delegation, congratulations to all of you, those of you who are reelected, those of you who are newly elected. And look forward to partnering with you as we have in the past on a variety of issues. You know, sometimes people call us on issues that are more in your jurisdiction. Sometimes they call you. I know they call you on federal issues. So they're all of our constituents, and we look forward to working with you on that. I also want to introduce somebody to you who's already known to many, if not all of you, Alyssa Hastings, who's our key person on the Eastern Shore, regional director. Melissa Kelly did a wonderful job. And when we were looking for a replacement, we wanted to find somebody with as much knowledge and energy, and Alyssa fits the bill. So we're really pleased that she's working with us now. So what I thought I'd do is just briefly talk about a few things that are already in the pipeline so that we can make sure that we together access funds for Eastern Shore counties, both federal funds that are now at the state level, plus additional federal funding. I do want to start with the American Rescue Plan that was passed a little more than about 2 years ago now. And the reason I mention it is not only because it resulted in lots of funds coming to the state of Maryland, $3.2 billion, and funds coming to the Eastern Shore, all the counties on the Eastern Shore, as well as municipalities on the Eastern Shore. The counties receiving about $208 million collectively. The reason I'm raising it now is because there are some unspent funds from that amount, not at the state level. The state level at the state level, they've been either spent or obligated. But there a number of counties, and we can get into this after this if you're interested, but there's about $40 million on Eastern Shore counties of these funds that have not been spent. Now, that's not a bad thing. Counties have until the end of 2024 to expend the funds. So that's not a bad thing at all. I did want to flag it because in December, Congress, we passed a bipartisan amendment making the use of those funds even more flexible. They were designed to address additional costs faced because of the pandemic, but we early on also made allowable uses investment in broadband, which of course is important on the Eastern Shore, as well as investments in water and sewer systems. And then in December, we made it even more flexible, saying that those funds could be used for infrastructure projects more broadly. So there are about $40 million in unused funds that now can be used for a variety of flexible purposes. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention as you talk to your county leaders, and we're in touch with them as well. Another major bill that we passed in the last 2 years that is, benefits are flowing to Maryland was the bipartisan infrastructure modernization bill. It's about $8 billion over the next 5 years to the state of Maryland, guaranteed, because those are formula funds. And there's a whole host of Eastern Shore transportation priorities that have been able to be funded because of that. And we're happy to provide you with a list of those if you're interested. And of course, there are others on your priority list that could be used those funds can be used for in working with the State Department of Transportation. So those are the formula funds. On top of that, there are about $150 billion in federal funds under the infrastructure bill that will be competitively bid. And the state of Maryland and any county is eligible to compete for those additional infrastructure funds if those projects cannot be funded through the normal Maryland transportation process. And we are working with counties in other parts of the state to identify those projects. So please let us know if there are projects that you want to compete for through that federal funding. Let me mention a couple other things that are very much on our agenda. And I'm sure you are hearing from the great folks in our seafood industry about our challenge as we face in many years with H-2B visas for crab pickers. We have the Department of Homeland Security has now released the maximum allowable H-2B visas nationally. We are working there as in past years. There are not enough to go around. Some of our seafood processors have done very well in the lottery, and so they will very likely get an allocation of those H-2B visas. Others drew a lower draw in the lottery. So Senator Cardin and I and the two Virginia senators, Warner and Kane, just spoke earlier this week with Secretary Mayorkas, to urge him to try to work with us to find creative solutions for this year. I met earlier this week with Jim Knutson of Phillips and Jack Brooks at Clayton Seafood. And we're trying to find creative ways to help all our seafood processors get what they need in terms of H-2B visas and workers this year. And then we'll be working on a longer term solution through the Ag Bill, which Congress will take up later this year. We need to exempt seafood from this annual lottery process. You just cannot operate in a stable fashion when everything is literally up to the roll of the dice or the spin of the lottery wheel. It's been a big challenge. Frankly, we have challenges on both sides of the aisle in Congress that have been resisting our effort to provide a seafood exemption. But we are going to see if we can't get that done as part of the Farm Bill this year. Finally, I wanted to mention, as part of the infrastructure bill, we were able to secure additional funds of over $250 million in one-time efforts to help with Chesapeake Bay cleanup, working on voluntary programs with farmers, as well as point source pollution. Those funds are on top of the annual monies, over $90 million that we've been able to secure for bay cleanup, both through the EPA and the Fish and Wildlife Service and other federal agencies. All of us are interested in working with you on the Conowingo Dam issue. As you know, because of the successful lawsuit, this is now back in the lap of the state, and we look forward to working with you and MDE and Constellation to really use this moment to try to reduce the amount of sediment coming over the Conowingo Dam. So that is now an open discussion as we go forward. So those are some of the things in the pipeline. We are working once again this year on what we call congressionally directed spending. These are earmarks. We've worked successfully with pretty much every county on the shore to identify projects, not just at the county level, but nonprofit entities and other entities. And we are going to be working again this year to try to do that. This is an opportunity to meet local needs without having to go through all the red tape and process of a federal agency, through congressionally directed efforts. And we look forward to working with all of you. And finally, we're working on the catfish issue. I should mention that. And I see, I think Mike from Congressman Harris's office here. Good to see you, Mike. And it's something that we're working on both sides of the aisle to try to achieve, to get the wild catfish in a waiver. In the meantime, we were able to get a little more funding so that the folks at the Department of Agriculture could process their inspections faster. But the long-term goal here is to get an exemption, get a waiver. And we're continuing to work on that as well as a delegation. So those are just a couple things going forward. We got to make sure we pass a budget this year at the federal level. It's going to be a little more challenging than in the past years, but we're hoping we can get it done. We're working in the Senate on a bipartisan basis to try to get agreement on some of the top lines so that we can, prevent federal government, shutdown drama that would be unnecessary and, in my view, very harmful. So that's where we are. Look forward to continuing to work with you. We all share the same constituents. Thank you for your service. I have incredibly fond memories of my time serving in both the House of Delegates and the State Senate. You get an awful lot done, and you get it done fast in 90 days. So thanks for all your great work, and look forward to our continued partnership. And I'm happy to try and answer any questions or take any comments.
Okay, thank you, Senator. We do have questions. Delegate Sample Hughes and I have been texting back and forth, and she'd like to start the questioning. And I know she's trying to drive, and then everybody's multitasking now toward the end of session. So hot and heavy. So Delegate Speaker Pro Tem Sample Hughes, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've actually now stable, not driving. So Senator, great to see you today. As always, I know you're a huge partner in all that we're trying to do. And I've always been very appreciative and looking forward to working with you. A couple of areas I wanted to just highlight, and I know just as you eloquently stated that we get a lot done in 90 days and so many balls are up in the air. One in particular, and it was just noted right before you came on, was the Shore Medical in Easton, making sure that we can get that hospital built. And with that being said, I met with the speaker and many others that have heard firsthand that that's the priority for Eastern Shore, one of the major priorities for the Eastern Shore. And so we have, looked at the budget, and we have some areas of, putting in like $10 million right now, and then looking at another 20 million, at least to get them to the point where they can show for the HSCRC as well as MHCH that they're have a commitment from us as an Eastern Shore. And with that being said, the monies that you had just referenced about that is available, would you foresee some of that money potentially being part of that commitment that they have to come up with? Like, for instance, they have to come up with $50 million to show forth that they have local support, and federal funds actually could be a part of that. So I was curious, number one, if that could help in that capacity. And then the second area, which is still healthcare related, another area I've been working with is the mayor of Crisfield, wanting to keep the emergency room open. I know Tidal Health is working diligently trying to get a trauma center, and also working with Crisfield Hospital. But at the same time, I think they, in Crisfield particular, still need additional supports as far as trying to, build their economy, and then also trying to deliver on the healthcare front. So any of those funds that you mentioned are those areas where we can possibly utilize that for that level of support.
Well, Delegate Sample Hughes, it's great to see you. And thanks for all your work. And in terms of funding for, you're asking specifically about funds that could be used for the hospital project in East.
Yes.
So the infrastructure modernization funds, those funds are for, more traditional kind of infrastructure, right? Roads, bridges, transit, so broadband. They could not, those are likely not be eligible. In terms of federal funds for healthcare, there are very important sources of fund for rural healthcare projects. We'll have to work with you to see if we can identify some of those funds, and I'll ask Alyssa to follow up with me and with you to see if we can't help identify some of those funds. But no, the funds that I mentioned that are in the pipeline on the infrastructure bill are not for hospital construction, but there are other sources of federal funding that could possibly be identified for this.
Okay, that would be most helpful. I certainly know what some of our counties on listening, they can be beneficial or find it beneficial for the infrastructure funds with the roads, et cetera. But I was just really trying to figure out where to get that clarity on the money for the hospitals as well.
Yeah,
but I'll work with Alyssa.
Yeah, I should say that the funds, and again, I have to look at Talbot County and to see if that's one of the counties, or Easton has remaining unused funds from infrastructure. But obviously at the local level, monies are fungible in the sense that if they can now use these federal funds for local infrastructure projects that are on their list, that can free up other sources of funding potentially. So that is, I would definitely check to see whether or not, like Talbot County or Easton, have unused balances from the American Rescue Plan funds.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator.
Yeah.
Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for being with us. As you know, in my district, there's still concern over the recent number of whale deaths and those showing up on the beach along the East Coast. Has there been any more progress as far as the necropsies coming back, showing if those that have been washed ashore with the vessel strikes and so forth, if they were the cause of the death, or if those vessel strikes were after the whale has died, or anything, just anything conclusive to give any idea as to what's causing this, because it is concerning with the large number this year.
Yeah, Delegate Hartman, thank you. And we have been looking into this as you have as well, because of the increase in right whale deaths. And all the information we get from NOAA indicates that the causes, the leading causes that they can identify are from hitting boats and netting, and that's been also especially true, they say, of the mother whales and younger whales. But we have been pressing them for on this issue, and they continue to indicate that as I said, that they believe that the right whale deaths are due to boating accidents and these deep trawl nets that they get caught up in. Let us stay in touch with you on this matter. But that's the most recent information we've gotten from NOAA, and that was just in the last couple of weeks.
Well, the deaths I'm referring to, the ones washing ashore, aren't necessarily right whale. It's been a variety, and some juvenile females and so forth. So it isn't that these whales are just dying of natural causes and so forth. So other than, are there any specifics? Are there any results of any of the necropsies and anything that are available at this point to talk about the specific deaths of these whales that are washed on shore over the last, I believe, since December? In particular, I know there's a whole nother campaign regarding the right whale, which we've shared, communication through letter on. This is a completely different issue. And, it's kind of unusual to see the volume of deaths. And, my concern is with all the development on wind energy on the East Coast, the correlation of, that construction and what we're seeing. My concern is, are the whales losing their ability to hear and so forth? That's why I'm concerned about the necropsies and the strikes, if they're, the cause of the death or postmortem.
Right. Well, no, we have asked that question, not just about right whales, but about other whales and dolphins and others.
Correct.
And we're still getting, NOAA has been quite insistent that all their evidence points to causes that where they know about the cause, it's because of collisions or nets. They have also looked very carefully at this issue of seismic testing. As you know, no construction has been begun offshore Maryland. I mean, there are 2 offshore sites identified in Maryland, but construction has not begun on either. But there is, as you say, there have been some seismic testing. And according to NOAA, and I remember asking NOAA similar questions in the past, even before these wind projects came about, and they indicate that all their evidence shows that the seismic activity, the sounding activity, is not the cause of these deaths. But we continue to work with you on this. I mean, obviously, everyone has concerns about why there has been an increase in deaths of whales, dolphins, and other sea life. So they have, again, they've told us that it is not due to seismic activity, and they're continuing to pursue this. But let's stay in touch. I mean, I'm happy to stay in touch, and Alyssa, make sure that we go back to NOAA and see if they've gotten any more information.
Since December, the necropsies on the whales that have showed up on the shore is what I'd really like to see.
Understood.
And I think that's ever been provided. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Hartman. Senator Mounts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Senator, it's great to see you. Thank you for making the time to join us this morning. I'd like to just quickly reiterate, I don't know if there's a way to get the federal delegation on the same page with regards to the hospital, but that is a top priority, and trying to find funding from whatever sources that we can. Governor Hogan put money in his budget, but that budget was sort of a temporary thing because Governor Moore is the one who's writing the budget right now, and everybody's working to do whatever they can constructively together. And the federal support from the federal delegation is wonderful. We just want to make sure it stays coordinated. So whatever you can do. But specifically, I had a question. I hadn't heard anything, and this was a topic of a lot of interest. But there's been discussion about making the Chesapeake Bay or working to get the Chesapeake Bay to be a designated national recreational area. Have you heard anything about that or had any information shared about plans or ideas to confer that type of designation on the Chesapeake Bay?
Yes. And so, first of all, Delegate Mouts, it's great to be with you. And we will work as a delegation on the question of identifying sources for the hospital. And I see Kim Cradaville has joined us. And so Senator Cardin and I work very much as partners in the Senate. And we've worked with Congressman Harris on a range of issues as well. So look forward to doing that. Yes. The Chesapeake National Recreation Area is an idea that's been kicking around for some time. And the idea is to create a designation of the Bay as a recreation area with the goal of doing two things: making sure that we can, protect the health of the Bay for generations to come, and also, provide more economic opportunities to everybody who makes their livelihood off of the Chesapeake Bay. Everyone from the watermen to the boating industry, fishing, because a lot of families, including ours, sometimes when we're a big outdoors family, when we're looking for where we want to go, we often look for national parks. And there's a lot of evidence to indicate that people around the country do that. And the whole idea of the Chesapeake Bay National Recreation Area is to, number one, not just have, Marylanders and Bay States recognize that we have a national treasure in the Chesapeake Bay, but to do it nationally. So the idea is to increase support from the National Park Service as well. The idea would be to create a couple sort of Bay heritage sites along the Bay. Again, this would be through purchasing of properties. There's nothing so far been identified on the Eastern Shore. There are a couple sites that private owners are interested in selling on the other shore, close to Annapolis. And so the idea would be to, create these destination areas where people could come learn more about the Bay. And also part of the goal is to increase access to the Bay, which especially on the Southern Shore is extremely limited. Only about, in terms of private property along the Bay, we want more people to be able to access the Bay through boating and other areas. So that's the idea. Let me just indicate very clearly what it does not do. It will not in any way be the federal government's not going to touch state parks. It doesn't impact anything with respect to watermen regulations, nothing about, fishing, nothing like that. The idea is simply to put the Bay a little bit more on the map nationally in order to ensure that we have a stream of federal resources to protect the Bay into the future, and that we create more economic opportunities for folks who make their livelihood from the Bay. So that's the goal. We're happy to provide you with more information. We're in the process right now of soliciting public input. No bill's been introduced yet. Congressman Sarbanes and I hope to introduce the bill in the coming months once we've completed an extensive open listening process. In fact, I can encourage anybody who's interested to go to one of our two websites. Our website is Van Hollen, so VANHOLLEN.senate.gov/C-N-R-A. And, Alyssa can make sure that all of you get that link if you're interested in commenting. So there you go.
Yeah.
Just put it in the chat. Thank you.
So the answer is, yeah, you have. Boy, that's a lot of information. Thanks a million. And I had not heard about that. It's there's a lot of interest, and certainly I think the Bay means a lot to, the Bay is a bellwether for the state of Maryland. I think the interpretation and the value and the uses are very unique from the Eastern Shore versus the Western Shore. So we'll be sure to share some of that information. I hope we can be a resource to you. Is that a distinction? So there's a bill that goes through Congress, and then would the governor have to be a participant of an agreement, or is that just an act of Congress saying they're designating the Bay? Wouldn't the state of Maryland have a role to determine?
Well, it would be a national designation, but the state, we certainly would not proceed without the support of the state. And I want to emphasize, Governor Hogan was a huge supporter of this.
Mm-hmm.
We got a letter from Governor Hogan some time ago encouraging us to proceed. And Governor Moore also is a supporter. So look, we have been reaching out across the state. We would welcome you helping, let others know. We've reached out to the folks in the boating industry. We've reached out to folks, the watermen, crabbing industry. We've got a fairly broad group to represent different stakeholders. I should indicate this also includes Virginia, because Virginia's been part of the Bay, and obviously, so they're represented in this in the group that is sort of the working group. So we're happy to answer any questions you've got. Our goal, in fact, is to make sure people recognize what this is, and also importantly, what this is not, because sometimes theories get, we just want to make very clear. This does not give the federal government any more authority over fishing regulations. That's not what it's about. It's about trying to, for example, we'd like to create a national park service visitors center. This would be probably on the parcel right now has been on the Southern Shore. We would welcome ideas for places on the Eastern Shore if there are parcels that private owners want to sell and there's support from the community. Again, the initial goal is to get this set up in at least a skeletal fashion, and then we believe that it can be an opportunity to bring more tourists to the state of Maryland and boost economic opportunities.
Thank you very much, Senator. Great to see you. Thank you.
You too.
I know we're over time, Senator Rand Hollins, so we will bid adieu to you, and thank you for being with us today. So federal updates, Alyssa, I don't think we'll get a better federal update than what we just got from your office, but if you'd like to add anything, go right ahead.
Senator Van Hollen did a wonderful job, and that was our update from our office. Thank you so much.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Chair Adams, just real quick. Yesterday, Congressman Harris gavelled his first hearing as the chair of the Agriculture Rural Development FDA subcommittee. He announced his intention to seek limitations to federal education funding for states that lack or reduce their existing school choice programs. And Congressman Harris will be joining a hearing with Reps Jeff Van Drew and Chris Smith on March 16th at 2 p.m. to address the offshore wind, energy, and whale death concerns. And then lastly, I did put in the chat box, today is the last day for making a submission for the appropriations request link that if you want to put in a request for an appropriation specifically, you got to do it by the end of business today. Thank you.
Okay, Keith Raffius, would you like to add anything to that? I see you online here.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the delegation, and thank you for Senator Van Hollen. This is the first time that Congressman Harris is participating in congressional directed spending, and his office has been a major asset and help to our staff through the process. So we want to thank them for that bipartisan cooperation. Mike just referred to programmatic requests for appropriations. Today is the last day for that close of business. That programmatic request is pretty much designated for federal entities looking for programmatic funds. For example, the $1 million the congressman gets every year for snakehead eradication and management in black water is done through programmatic funds. However, the congressional directed spending earmark request, they close at the end of business on Monday, 5 o'clock. And I'll put my email up in the chat, and Mike can too if anyone has any further questions about that. I do want to, the only thing I want to say about that is maybe manage some expectations. Each member of Congress can submit up to 15 requests. So you have Congressman Harris, who has 10 counties in his district and a slice of Baltimore County. So that's maybe 10.2 counties, and he can only put in 15 requests. And it's doubtful that all those requests will make it through the entire Congress. So I just want to manage some expectations on that. We'll do what we can, certainly, to fulfill the district's needs. But I want to thank you for the time. I want to thank the delegation. And I do know that the congressman is looking forward to joining you all next week.
Absolutely. Okay, Kim Cradaville, U.S. Senator Ben Cardin's office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would say no in the interest of time. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next week's our last scheduled meeting. Historically, the Eastern Shore delegation does not have meetings after next week. I think crossover has something to do with that, and unless there's a will of the membership to meet, next week will be the last the scheduled meeting. I want to say, since we have both, and before I open up the floor to the members for final questions or anything for the good of the order, I want to thank both Ken Cozell and Chris Hall. I know Dr. Gerald, I don't see him on anymore, but you've been integral components to the meetings that we've had of subjects, the subject that has been significant in the deliberation for the Eastern Shore delegation. I think as we've moved forward over the many years that I've been with the Eastern Shore delegation, we've tried to find ways to connect and then support whatever the needs are. And hopefully you have deemed us as being supportive to your aims. I know there have been many other interests that have been on our agenda, but I see both of you here, and we have tremendous admiration for the services you provide under what I will argue, just from my layman's perspective as a business guy, difficult business operations to conduct work in, and we admire that. If you'd like, we have no more, the U.S. or the Secretary of Health or Van Hollen on, but if you'd like to make just a brief closing, just update us, you're welcome to do so. We've got a couple more minutes, and then we'll close things out.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Thank you. And I'd just like to start by saying thank you to you, Chairman Adams, and to the entire Eastern Shore delegation for your unwavering support of the University of Maryland Shore Regional Health, and truly for carrying the flag for our Easton Regional Medical Center in Annapolis. Your efforts are so greatly appreciated, and as we've discussed, are vital to our ability to put a shovel in the ground on this critically important project for the Eastern Shore. I am both amazed and very grateful for the progress that the Eastern Shore delegation has made in Annapolis in such a short period of time. You have coalesced around this project as a priority, and you have demonstrated results so quickly. But please know that as you're working feverishly on our behalf, our conversations are ongoing with the executive branch about longer-term funding that could get us to that $100 million over time. We know from those discussions that your letters to the governor and other communications of support from community leaders on the shore have been incredibly meaningful to his administration. In addition to that, we are continuing to work through the CON application process and are on track with answering the state's questions about our application. And as we've discussed today, we are also we've submitted applications for congressionally designated fundings to our 2 U.S. senators and are in the process of working on one for for Congressman Harris. And please, I'll end by just saying, please know that if there's anything I can do to continue to support you in your efforts, I'm just a phone call away. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the time this morning.
Okay, thank you very much. And Chris, anything, or are we good? You're welcome.
Just to echo the same thing, I just want to publicly thank the delegation for their support, both on Senate Bill 493, but also House Bill 675, where we had hearings yesterday. It's been wonderful to work with the team and your representation of rural healthcare on the Eastern Shore. And the same thing that Mr. Gazelle said, we also thank you all for. You guys have been amazing in the support and specifically the trauma, but also as we move forward with graduate medical education, standing up new programs in internal medicine, general surgery, family medicine, and then anesthesiology and a few others, and some fellowship programs in a unique situation on the Eastern Shore that usually you don't find anywhere else in the country. But thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn? Seems not. Okay, I need a
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I get a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you on the floor. The bell just rang. All right.